For more, I'm joined by Dr. Ashley Frawley, Canadian sociologist at the University of Swansea and the author of The Semiotics of Happiness. And alongside her is independent barrister Samantha Davies. Hello to you both. Dr. Frawley, to you first. How much trouble is Justin Trudeau in for this photo?
Probably a lot, but who knows? I mean, the news cycle tends to forget about these things rather quickly. I really don't like this zeal with which we dredge up images from people's past. It's really disingenuous. I mean, but you can't imagine that people were like stumbled across this picture and were sort of like, oh dear God, and clutched their pearls. No, it was a gotcha kind of moment. And I think, you know, if you really want to talk about racist policy or racism from Trudeau, look at his policy, look at immigration policy. We've got a policy that cherry picks middle-class professionals from the developing world, making it impossible for poor people to get into the country. You've got short-term exploitative visas for poor guest workers with very few rights, very few chances at citizenship. But as long as he talks the right talk, no one says anything. More dangerous than Trudeau in black or brown face is Trudeau, the slick, smooth-talking politician, because it stops us from scrutinizing what he's really doing.
Samantha Davies, this happened 18 years ago. He has come out and issued an apology. Is that it? Do we draw a line now?
No, I don't think we can simply draw a line because he's issued an apology and expressed his regret. He was 29 years old at the time. He should have known that it was offensive. That sort of image harks back to the minstrel shows of the 19th century, you know, where black people were sent up by comedians and actors, particularly in the USA. For me, what this highlights actually is how normalized racist perceptions are and racism itself is in our society. If Mr. Trudeau could say that at age 29, he was unable to appreciate how racist or how offensive is the more appropriate word, I would say, how offensive those images and that sort of behavior was to the very people that he wishes to empower and support. And your guest has just spoken about Trudeau's policies. Yes, let's look at his policies. Now, I'm not saying that as a result of this photograph, we need to effectively write off Justin Trudeau. No, not at all, because far from it. When we look at his policies, he has supported a study into Islamophobia within the Canadian Parliament. He's funded centres for gender equality. He has been very supportive of people embracing their other cultures and also their Canadian citizenship and identity. So he has fostered a more inclusive identity and perception of Canada at a time when we have right-wing populism sweeping across a lot of other Western democracies. So for me, what this photograph highlights is, in fact, the degree of education that is needed across the board, you know, not just for Justin Trudeau, but across the board, because why would he not have known at age 29 that this was an offensive thing to do? The point is he should have known.
And that point has been picked up by the leader of the opposition Conservatives, Andrew Scheer, Ashley Frawley, hasn't it? And he said the picture was racist in 2001. It is racist now. What Canadians have seen is someone with total lack of judgment and integrity and someone who is not fit to govern this country. And the timing of this is crucial for Justin Trudeau.
It is.
Yeah, here's where we need to be careful, though. We pick at these low-hanging fruit because they're obvious, they're visceral sort of images that hark right back to really bad times for ethnic minorities, right? But we need to be very careful because racism today doesn't predominantly operate in that obvious way. It's no longer really about smashing windows and you know, slurs scrawled on walls. That sort of thing does happen, but even more insidious is the new form of racism, which operates through kindness and flattery. That is what is racism today. It's the slick, smooth-talking language, even language of anti-racism. So look, for example, at Indigenous people. For at least 20 years, Indigenous people in Canada have been talked about in this really deferential, flattering way. The research that I'm doing at the moment, I see over and over and over again the language that basically says, I'm really sorry, Indigenous people, that you're so messed up. They construct them as mentally ill and basically unable to take care of their children and their families and so on. And they say, it's really our fault, colonialism and so on. We're really sorry, but we're going to have to take away your children anyway. In spite of this deferential language, this kindness, this flattery, we have more children in care than were in care during the 60s scoop. More Indigenous children are being taken away from their families than was the case during a time in Canadian history when it is rightly recognized as a terrible, terrible time for Indigenous families. And the language is kind.
Politicians talking the talk, not walking the walk. Samantha Davies.
Yes, but also what I thought, for me, what struck me about those photographs is we were talking about an extremely prestigious, highly reputed private school in Canada. And yes, the image of Justin Trudeau dressed in blackface or brownface, as it were, is shocking and it is offensive. I always find those images offensive. However, what struck me from those photographs, and there are more photographs than the one that you're showing now, showing other people in attendance at that party, also showing other members of the faculty at the school, was the actual absence of any black person, either in any of the photographs that I saw of the faculty or of the attendees at that party. And for me, that's another question. So this is what I mean about how insidious and prevalent racism is, that we just accept it as the norm, and that someone like Justin Trudeau, who has a stated intention of improving and creating a more inclusive society, and I will say who has demonstrated actual policy and specific taken action, in his position as Prime Minister to improve that inclusivity, has a blind spot and is unable to recognise racist activity, comment, behaviour when it's staring him right in the face. That's how normalised racism is in our society. And that is the thing that we really need to combat.
Actually, I just want to go back to your first point about this dredging up these photographs from the past. And I just wonder whether or not it is right to question our politicians' past before they came into politics. We talked about David Cameron smoking marijuana. We've had the controversy over Michael Gove and cocaine use, for example. Does it matter what they did in their past? Or as politicians, are they held to a higher standard?
Well, to a certain extent, obviously, it does matter what politicians have done in the past. But the idea is that you can dredge something up and then you can cancel people. And it's not just policymakers that we're holding to this standard. Like, people are losing their jobs for making bad jokes on Twitter, that kind of thing. We need to be able to have public conversations where people are allowed to say and do stupid things and not be like beyond the pale and never seen again. Obviously, someone in power, probably that's not going to happen. But for the lesser of us, one slip up, one mistake, and your life is ruined. That is a really toxic kind of culture, and it's really scary. We do not give people the benefit of the doubt. We've lost all sense of context. We allow misanthropy, thinking the worst of everything, and actually, I think in a very bad faith kind of way, like almost like we really don't believe it. That there's this joy in canceling people, this glee of finding something that somebody said. I think that's really disgusting, and particularly for young people now coming up on social media to say, like, you absolutely can never make a mistake or your future is ruined. That is terrifying. What kind of culture are we creating? We need to be able to make mistakes. We need to be able to be wrong in public life, because that is how conversations move forward.
OK, Dr. Ashley Frawley, I'm afraid Samantha Davies, thank you both very much indeed. We've run out of time, but thank you.